Welcome back, web slingers, to another examination of the Spider-Man mythos. In this video, I am the Spider. We'll be covering two different time periods and struggles in the matter of Peter's identity, the most epically dark period of the 90s and the totemic arcs of the 2000s. The conflicts were entirely different, although they are both identified as the Spider or the Man. The first conflict during J.M. Dematteis' tenure on Amazing involved Peter's personas, his civilian life as Peter Parker, and his heroic career as Spider-Man. This conflict touches every story to the point of tired cliche, but it significantly subsided as a result of his marriage. There's this vicious cycle in the hero's life where the more he's out as Spider-Man, the more his life as Peter Parker suffers. And the more unbearable his civilian life, the more he feels the need to escape, to hide, and put on the mask, which only makes things worse. This inevitably culminates in him snapping one way or the other, but it never lasts. Because of the love and trust of a serious and honest relationship, Peter barely had to struggle with this for a while. In the marriage, he could be his true self. This didn't mean that his life was easy or super happy, but rather extremely challenging and happy enough. This stability in Peter's life was upset, however, by a lot of dark writing, tons of tragedy. I'd call it sadistic if I didn't know better. Let's take inventory. He's suffering the accumulated stress of fighting Venom and his best friend Harry Osborn quite a bit lately, confronting incredibly powerful serial killers like Carnage, the death of Harry Osborn, and the realization that the parents who he had met and come close to over the past few months were actually robots meant to kill him, and that this betrayal had been a plot of Harry had instigated before he died. A lot to deal with for anyone, and honestly, he had to endure much worse afterwards than he had so far. Peter is angry, miserable, tormented, and he comes to the realization that all the emotional pain he has been subjected to has been because of the attachments he had formed as Peter Parker, and that the ones he loved would be safer if he ditched his civilian life altogether and let his personality become completely consumed by his persona as Spider-Man 24/7. The stress has gone to MJ to the point that she took up smoking. She quit, but had her box out and was considering having one. Her thoughts give us a great examination of both of them and what's going on. Peter, where are you? Hiding behind your mask, safe inside Spider-Man? You're like a little boy playing pretend, and as long as you keep playing, you won't have to feel. You won't have to hurt. But did it ever occur to you how much you're hurting me? You've hardly been home for days, and when you are here, I can't get more than a few syllables out of you. I'm fine, you grunt. No problem, I can handle it. And then you're gone again. I know the routine backwards and forwards. I used to get it from my father all the time, always lost in his work. And even when he was there, he wasn't. You could sit in the same room as the man and feel utterly alone. He abandoned me years before he actually left, and lucky me, I got to marry a man who's doing it to me all over again. No, not again. She throws a cigarette in the trash. You're not going to hide behind your mask, and I'm not smoking myself into an early grave to get back at you. You're not my father, Peter, you're my husband, and no ghosts from your family or mine are going to stop us from making this marriage work. Hearing Peter enter through the window, she enters the bedroom and watches him sitting on the bed, miserable. Look at him, just like Dad, a million miles away, and that's exactly how he wants it. He might as well be wearing a sign around his neck that says, "Go away, leave me alone," and maybe I should leave him alone. Maybe I will. What's the point of reaching out to someone who's only going to reject me in the end? She addresses him. You know, you're not the only one who's good at running away. I was an expert at it years before we ever met. So you just sit there behind your walls. You just shut the world out and me with it. I am out of here. But she doesn't leave. He silently acknowledges her and she joins him on the bed. Get this straight, Parker. No running, no masks, no cancer sticks. We don't need them. All we need is our love. Please, God, let that be enough. Things go well, at least till she falls asleep. Waking from a nightmare, she finds him gone. Peter, oh Peter, I had the worst dream. You were gone, hiding behind your mask, a little boy playing pretend. And as long as you kept playing, you won't have to feel, you won't have to hurt. But did it ever occur to you how much you're hurting me? She throws a cigarette pack out the window. Anyway, a friend of Carnage's named Shriek breaks out of Ravencroft Asylum along with Carrion. Spider-Man goes to Ravencroft to seek therapy from Dr. Kafka. He finds out about the breakout. He tracks the escapees and fights brutally. He is not looking for justice or helping the innocent, though both villains present a very great threat to society. They are merely targets of his anger, distractions from his misery. No jokes, just retribution. Shriek notices this difference after explaining some of her powers. Her words are, "But you know the thing I do best, don't you? I dig inside and find your darkness, and I echo it, and amplify it, and until the end, you're just like me." Meanwhile, at May's home, A bagel with your coffee, Mary Jane, or would you like me to make you some eggs? May, please sit down. I didn't come here at 8 in the morning for a free breakfast. I came over to talk. Talk? About what, dear? Is there a problem? Are you and Peter having difficulties? I know things have been hard since you lost your job, but is there a problem? Of course there's a problem. Oh, I see. It's Richard and Mary, isn't it? Those horrible imposters have upset you both. Well, you listen to me, Mary Jane. We're all better off now that they're gone. We can forget about them and just go on with our lives. Now sit back, down, let me toast you a bagel, and get out of the cream and cheese and... I don't want anything to eat. I just want someone in this family to face reality. You and Peter, you both think that if you keep ignoring a problem long enough, it'll just go away. I don't know how many times I've tried to talk to him about what happened with his parents, and he just won't let me in. And now you're doing the same thing to me. Pretend it's no big deal. Have a nice big breakfast and forget about the whole thing. But human beings can't live like that. We can't survive holding these things in. We either deal with them or they eat us alive. What is the matter with you two? It's like you're not even human, like you have no feelings. I feel, believe me, Mary Jane, I feel. I felt it when Richard and Mary were taken away from us all those years ago, when my husband died bleeding in my arms, when poor Gwen was killed, when Nathan... I've lived through my share of tragedies, young lady, more than you could ever bear. And the only way I have been able to live through them was by not dwelling on them, by pushing the pain aside and moving on. So don't tell me what I should be feeling, and don't tell me to face reality. I know full well what reality is. I know. May, why don't you pour yourself a fresh cup of tea? I'll scramble us both some eggs. Sure, that'd be great. Meanwhile, in the fight with Shriek, your darkness, Spider-Man, I can feel it. Thicker, tastier than it was before. You're moving closer to my world all the time, I think. Perhaps if I give you a little push, you just might be the father my boy needs, the husband who will fulfill my every desire. I'd like that, and I think with a little help from me, you'd like it too. So I'll just reach into your mind, grab a handful of your shadow self, and encourage it, expand it. When Peter gets to his senses, hurt, tired, exhausted, welcomes it, surrenders to the darkness, moving down, down, down into oblivion. When he rouses himself, he gets home and collapses in bed. Upon awaking, he finds a note. His aunt is in hospital. The note takes Peter's already shattered world and grinds it into dust. He watches her from the hospital window in costume, then returns home with his wife. At home, Peter is totally torn and broken. It's not fair. Carrion's mother finds the villains and is held captive. Mary Jane arrives home to find her husband hiding in a cocoon. She waits 5 minutes and leaves. At night she returns and finds it empty. Someone died there in the cocoon, someone soft and vulnerable, someone brutalized and frightened. But there'll be no mourning for the deceased, no prayers, no requiems. Rest in peace, Peter Parker. Methinks long may you rot. Now and forever, I am the Spider. Spider-Man returns to the home housing the villains, and without a word from either party, Shriek realizes that our plan has worked. Peter fights Shriek and Carrion, helping Carrion's mother. There are no jokes, however, no clever one-liners. In Aunt May's hospital room, Mary Jane explains to her comatose form that she's leaving. Not permanently, but the robot parent's deal has gotten to her, and that between the brainless Cisco Queen masks she put on before her relationship got serious, and her acting career, she needs to discover who she is and where she fits, by confronting her surviving family member a second time. In the end, it is the love of Carrion's mother that saves the day, what gets Spider-Man to catch himself and to grasp at his humanity, to not pass over the edge. And it's what convinces Shriek to sacrifice herself, curing Carrion from the virus at the cost of her own health. At the end of the story, Peter reflects on the mercy he feels toward Shriek. His thoughts are recorded as, "What's wrong with me? I don't want to feel, I don't want to care, and yet I can't seem to stop myself. I wrap myself in a cocoon, hide myself behind a mask, and for all my efforts, Peter Parker still refuses to surrender. Maybe Uncle Ben and Aunt May did their job too well. Maybe." As he web swings, he unconsciously finds himself stopping at his aunt's hospital room. Entering Dematteis narrates. The spider is afraid to go in, wants to turn and run back into the cocooning darkness, but the man refuses. As he arrives home and finds a note from his departed wife, he's agitated, confused, but he knows now that it's time to stop running. It's time to come home. "No," the spider whispers, "you're safe with me. Don't be a fool. Don't let yourself care. All he wants now is to hold his wife in his arms, tell her he's sorry, beg her to help him through this awful time. If the mask comes off, they'll claw out your eyes. If you open your heart," he reads the note, "they'll tear it from your chest." The story continues through tales like Peter's first encounter with Joe's Traveler, Back from the Edge, and Web of Death. In Back from the Edge, Peter consults with Daredevil at a point in time Matt Murdock had shed his humanity, and asks for his advice to do just that, to leave his civilian life dead, buried, forgotten. This desire ends when he is infected with a virus and at death's door. While still troubled by the misery, he determines to spend what time remains with his loved ones, and hopefully to find a cure. Between Shrieking and Back from the Edge, we have Spider-Man and Ravencroft, which Traveler has taken control of, surrounded by madmen. This does not make him feel the best about himself, regardless of the issues he's already dealing with. Let's take a look. Insects, spiders, webs, man, insane, parents dead, faceless, wife gone, alone, aunt dying, alone, 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 no. His fragmented thoughts scream, if I can just stay calm, safe here behind the mask, I'll make it. He knows it's a lie as soon as he thinks it, and the shadows themselves seem to mock his false bravado. Eyes watching, voices chattering, talking about him, laughing at him. I know you're there. Why won't you leave me alone? Stop laughing at me. Stop hiding. Stop hiding. Show yourself. Who are you? What do you want from me? Why won't you leave me? Traveler reveals himself and lifts Fireman into the air by his throat. Why struggle? I've been dancing through your consciousness for hours. Do you think you can force me out now? All through this institution our minds obsessed with you, Spider-Man. Your name runs like a mantra through their twisted psyches. They strain futilely to understand you, but their very madness prevents them from ever doing it. I want to understand you as well, and I will, by pushing away the final veil of consciousness and moving into the part of your soul so deep, so shadowed, that you yourself are unaware of the truths that reside there. And then he breaks out laughing. Spider-Man attacks. Stop! You can't do this to me. You don't have the right. I'm not some joke. I'm not some laboratory experiment. I'm a man. That you are. An utterly broken man. Spider-Man collapses without suffering a single blow. He knows that Traveler's right. Broken, not by this night's events, but by a lifetime. How long, he thinks, if these crippled impulses that crawl across his mind could be called thought, can he go on fighting, and for what? Some imagined ideal, some moral line in the sand? Better to withdraw into nothingness like Smerdyakov than live in this cruel and heartless world. Better to embrace chaos like Cassidy than try to uphold an illusory order. In a world like this, he concludes, as his will dissolves, his very self implodes. Madness is the only sane response. On a later occasion, Peter was on the road to recovery, though memory flashes that suggested he was in fact a clone were not helping. The implication that a person was a fake, a copy of who they thought they were, would be damaging to anyone's concept of self. Otto Octavius returned and found Spider-Man's form collapsed on the streets because of the virus. His thoughts were as follows. All these years we've come together time and again, driven by demons neither one of us could fully understand or explain. And now at last I find you like this, weak, vulnerable, pathetic. I could crush the life out of you with little effort, batter your defenseless body until there's nothing left but bloody pulp. But I can't, I won't, not now, not yet, because I need to understand you. I've been watching you closely since my escape from the vault. I don't know why the idiots bother arresting me. They never have been able to hold me. Watching and wondering. You've changed, Fireman, and I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. I've always looked upon you as the last decent man, brave, self-sacrificing. Agreed we see far too little in these corrupted times. A bit later. You at least have made the game worthwhile, but as of late you seem to have changed, become as much the bloodthirsty vigilante as those other so-called heroes out there. Octavius leaves him, and Peter regains consciousness. Mary Jane returns home from her trip having dealt with her family issues, committed to making things work, but too tired to make an immediate effort. As Peter wakes up, his thoughts are, only one thing to do, only one place to go, home. The masks are off, the walls are down, I'm scared, I'm alone, and I need my wife beside me, my partner, my best friend. How long can I keep running from the person I love most In short, he has another memory of possibly being a clone, encounters Stunner, is defeated, and Otto unmasks him. When he returns home, he finds Mary Jane, who announces her pregnancy. Peter's very excited about this, the promise of new life, of hope, the last motivation he needs to drag himself out of this despair. After all these months of pain, this is the best news I could have ever asked for, a baby. But he's also worried because he's dying and might not live to see his daughter. Peter, what is it? What is wrong? I know things have been hard lately, and we're certainly not in the best shape financially, but that doesn't matter, sweetheart. We're going to have a baby. You and I. We created a life. We made a miracle, and nothing's going to take that joy away from us. Do you hear me? Nothing. The two visit his aunt in the hospital, and since coma victims can hear, he tries to convince her to cling to life long enough to see her grandniece. Then they have a date, which is interrupted by the arrival of Octavius, who is working on a cure for Peter's condition. Peter doesn't trust that his second-greatest enemy was providing a cure for his condition, but Otto tricks him into saving himself by attempting to dispose of the cure. Desperate to not lose his only chance of seeing his child, Peter protests and is given it. Losing consciousness, he has an out-of-body experience, whether he is among the dead dying in the astral plane or experiencing a delusion is ambiguous. But he finds himself in Aunt May's hospital room and has a conversation with her dying comatose mind, or more plausibly a subconscious projection of her, since the baby was later miscarried, that is, kidnapped by an employee of Norman Osborn, and rather than ever see the baby again, editorial decided that May had to be brought back from the dead. So instead, Peter found her, and we found out that May that died was a genetically engineered actress. Curse you, Bob Harris. I don't think that he could be having a conversation with an imposter that had so little to actually work with. Aunt May? No, it couldn't have been her. She's still in a coma, still beyond my reach. Oh, but if only you were there, Aunt May. You've guided me through the best of times and through the worst. I can say the same of you, and that's why I can't turn away from you now. Aunt May, it was you? You shouldn't be here, Peter, but I don't know where else to turn. You have a destiny, a journey to make, a journey I can't take with you, as much as I'd like to. Where, Aunt May? Where am I supposed to go? Remember when you were little, Peter, so upset, so wounded after having lost your parents? Remember how you loved hearing the tales of the other lost boy named Peter and his adventures in Neverland? I do, but I don't understand what. Second to the right and straight on till morning. We can assume that Peter's mind has shifted from clinging to his aunt's mortal life in the past, as he has for most of his life, to focusing on the bright future ahead. And his subconscious is encouraging him to do this is a good prospect, and of course guiding him back to consciousness. In time, Peter fully ascended out of the dark pit, though we did find him quite angry on occasion later as a result of all the manipulations involved in the clone saga. The other conflict came years later in JMS's run, the conflict between the two different aspects of his biology, the spider and the man. We had seen this played out on a small scale in Amazing Spider-Man number 100 through 102, when Peter sprouted 4 extra arms, when an attempt to cure himself backfired. Now, however, everything Peter thought he knew about his powers were in doubt because of Ezekiel, Moreland, and Shathra. Rather than a twist of fate and science, a random bite from a radioactive spider to the mystical, the spider might have deliberately tried to grant its power to him, to make him some totemic Spider-Man, an ancient bridge between man and beast, and the center of the web of life as well. Characters that are part animal or adopt the characteristics and traits of animals is an age-old element of mythology. This motif as a bridge between man and nature has declined somewhat in the past century, however, outside the medium of comics, where it's very present. Throughout JMS's run pre-Civil War, we see this play out in the conflicts between the rational, scientific, and merciful part of Peter's mind, and the instinctual, primordial, and predatory. While we don't get a clear-cut answer on what the truth was, evidence is presented on both sides, and the writing at times suggests it's not even important. The real issue, as Ezekiel puts it, is that there's been an imbalance in the way Peter's carried himself. He's largely denied the part of himself that is well and truly Spider. Ezekiel teaches him to live as a true Spider-Man, the perfect balance between man and arachnid. In his own words, he was teaching Peter to be the Spider, but be smart about it. As Peter learned from the abilities and mannerisms of spiders and practiced them, his survival was threatened by foes that prey upon his kind, part of the natural order. Moreland, Shathra, and, of course, Ezekiel turned on them later. In order to survive, Peter had to grow more merciless, but controlled, favoring strategy over rage. There is a real difference between the two species and the mentalities that make up Peter's nature. Most of the time, the less Peter thinks and the more he lets the instinctual spider nature take control, the better he performs in a fight. As stated before, this is one of the reasons why he jokes. He keeps his mind off the fight. While the spider needs a little intervention from the man on occasion, needing Peter to use the scientific know-how or humor to trick or snare his opponents, most of the time is able to accomplish this on his own. Before JMS's run, there was only so far Peter was willing to cede control, hence the imbalance. Even aware of the inherent benefits of his animal nature, Peter was devoting a good chunk of his mental resources to holding back. Just how much he holds back became quite clear when Otto Octavius, in Peter's body, punched the scorpion's jaw right off his head in dying wish. As Peter progressed through the run, we saw Spider-Man develop to the hero who was willing to do what was needed to be done, at least against gamma zombies and totemic predators, but never losing the inherent goodness and mercy of his character. This climaxed in the story The Other, which bore the tagline, Evolve or Die. In this story, he was dying precisely because he had failed to fully reconcile the two natures, much akin to someone suffering from a botched blood transfusion or organ transplant. Peter was dying and being stalked by Moreland, who literally ripped one of his eyes out of its socket. At the end of the story, Peter was in the hospital with Mary Jane, and Moreland showed up to finish him off. Mary Jane tried to defend him, but Moreland injured her easily and considered killing her right in front of him. With mere seconds left to live, Peter attacked, stingers sprouting from his arms. He savagely killed Moreland, this living symbol of the inevitability of the grave, his first killing to save the woman he loved. Peter kind of died, but having accepted his other, he was resurrected with enhanced powers, which promptly disappeared after one more day without any explanation. The character that emerged from the other was a fully mature hero missing nothing but an heir. It was very refreshing, and it would have offered more creative freedom and fresh story opportunities for writers. I really believe that the Civil War and everything that came after didn't get in the way. We would have had some of the best Spider-Man stories we have ever seen, but was not to be, and Back in Black is the closest glimpse we will probably ever get. In short, Peter is the spider, and he is the man. He is a Spider-Man. I'll conclude with a quote from Craven's Last Hunt. At a time, the hunter was impersonating Spider-Man. I watch them as specimens, flies. Watch them. I am the spider, and I know, in ways normal men cannot. I know. I see into things, beyond things. I see strands of fate that bind us, victims to victor. So let them scream, let them shout my name. My ears hear nothing but the weaving of the web. They are trapped and I devour them. One game concludes, another begins. They burst in, feigning shock, annoyance, fear, magnificent actors in the play of my creation. They serve me, worship me, but the world must never know. So I skitter into the night while they order me to stop. Skitter. I am the spider. No, not the spider. I am Craven. I have slain the spider. Become him. I have hunted as the spider hunts. I consumed the spider's prey. I proved myself his superior in every way. No, almost every way. The final proof comes. Next time, we'll be going over the various mentor figures in Spider-Man's vocation history, as well as the role of the mentor in the hero's journey. Until then, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can donate if you're so inclined. Leave your thoughts in the comments and any requests you may have.